don't think I've ever spoken about this before. I was going out 2-3 times a week when I really should have been staying in the gym and getting my head on it just because I had a setback. I think same with kids, they don't realise that they're getting sort of caged and bottled up.
Today we've got our first guest on, Sonny Edwards. Thank you very much for coming on. How are we doing, Sonny?
Yeah, what you saying, Marv?
Yeah, good. Thanks for coming on,
Oh, thanks for the trip down. We've had a nice trip down from up north, haven't we?
Yeah, Ain't we?
Yeah, you're not going to just do that all day, are you?
Oh, what a blinder. Yeah, so obviously this is all new to me now, this is all brand new, we're on the telly, and we're nothing but the truth. So obviously, when I speak to my guests and we start the show, I like to let everybody, all our new viewers that are tuning in, know that the purpose of the Nothing But the Truth is to expose the grooming mindset, the bad behaviour, conduct of some individuals, and try to help underprivileged people or people caught up with the criminal justice system use platforms to generate a financial revenue stream which is legal, which cannot be detrimental, which won't end them in trouble, won't end them in prison, and won't end them up getting killed. So we use the platform to help create awareness that crime isn't the only way forward, violence isn't the only way forward, drugs are not the only way forward. There's plenty of help out there, there's plenty of platforms, and there's plenty of opportunities, plenty of avenues. So the guests that I have on come from the similar environments that I've come from, similar places, or mixed with similar people. So everybody's been associated to the demographic, sort of social deprivation of working class environments within the urban culture. So I like to show through my guests that anything's possible, right? And that don't just get caught up with you've got to just sell a bit of grub, or you've got to just nick a bit of thing, or you've got to do as you're told, because you don't. You can do whatever you want, you can become whoever it is you want to become, just like Sonny Edwards. And now, the world-acclaimed, was it featherweight?
Flyweight.
Flyweight.
Yeah,
so
flyweight.
The world-acclaimed flyweight champion of the world. Not British, European, the world. How does it feel?
It feels good. I mean, it's been a long time coming. I've been boxing since I was 9 years old. I first laced up a pair of gloves when I was knee height. Do you know what I mean? I was
literally,
yeah. And I'm not too far off hip now. Do you know what I mean? I'm hip height now.
Good.
But it's all I've ever known. Coming up to, I think I'm 25 now, so that's 16 clean years, coming up to 17.
19 with a shave.
Yeah, I mean, I've been boxing for 17 years basically now. I've dedicated a hell of a long time. Whole lot of hours, unpaid work, do you know what I mean? It's a lot of people are scared of. To get to the top of to do anything, you have to do way more than you're getting paid for to then start getting paid way more than what you earn, like what you're working for, do you know what I mean? So it feels good now because a lot of the time of what I've often had with my style, the way I present myself, I've had the doubters that are sort of waiting on me to fail, looking forward to it and picking holes in what I'm doing. But now with the body of work I've got now, the position I'm in now, IBF Flyweight World Champion, just beat arguably one of the best flyweights in the world for a long period of time. I mean,
how does that feel though, man? How does that feel like?
It feels good, but...
Has it sunk in yet?
But that's the question I've been asked every single day. And before the fight, the whole camp, I was very calm, cool, collected. Fight week, it was just another fight. I mean, did all my media duties. They were kind of surprised how many I was willing to do, even after the weigh-in and whatnot. But it's a position that I feel like I've always deserved to be in. When I first turned pro, Marv, I weren't, you know, pro debut, O2 Arena, live on BT or Sky Sports. I wasn't. I was over in Spain, in Estepona, in a small hall show out there.
I remember the small
show. Yeah. I know. That was my debut. Then 3.5 weeks later, I was on a dinner show up in MTK, Scotland. Yeah. Like I come through the, you know, the harder route.
The hard graft, yeah.
Yeah, so where it's not all sort of the lights and the smokes and the mirrors and the...
guidance.
Yeah, and the blowing smoke up your eyes. You know what I mean? It's
the help, the guidance and the position.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I had good people around me, but I also understood that I was very young turning pro. I think I was only 20 going on 21. So I didn't mind that I weren't sort of getting thrust in the deep end. Obviously, my older brother he's 3 years older than me. He turned pro, I think, 18 months, 2 years before me. So I've always learnt from him. Whatever he's been doing, I've always had that guide So when he was doing something right, I need to follow that. When he was coming up and doing stuff wrong, you know, he's definitely made some mistakes that I've benefited and learned from. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah,
mimic behaviour, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and seeing how people in the industry, because obviously we both came into the industry sort of green. Do you know what I mean? We're the first 2 boxers in our family, regardless. Then we did everything as an amateur. You know, went all through everything but the Olympics. The pair of us.
You were probably a little dream team growing up, though. You went everywhere with each other, didn't you? Really, done everything together. So I remember seeing the pair of you together from the first day one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially when we was over in Marbella and whatnot. We always have been pretty close. There has been times when just a setup of our life, like when he was on GB or I was at uni or something, then there was a bit more distance between us. But having him a couple of steps ahead just shows me that you need to always watch and absorb everywhere, every environment you're going into, especially a professional one, just to see how people dealing with each other, dealing with you, and get the life experiences, because I want to go into boxing, coaching and managing. That's a big part of where I see myself after my career.
Excellent.
So that's why I'm always constantly learning, listening. You know, you have one mouth and 2 ears for a reason. And through that, I probably put myself in a better position than I ever would have if it wasn't for having my brother doing everything that little bit ahead of me. Because obviously you only really learn by seeing stuff up close and personal. And even though it might have, you know, been detrimental not having that experience with my brother, every time that sort of, after in hindsight, we've looked back and thought, you know what, we could have done this differently, or he could have done this, or maybe he should have listened to this person rather than that person. Because obviously you're going to have, through a career of anything, you're going to have regrets. You're going to have paths where you could have went right, but you went left, and it ended up...
Tell me about it.
Trust me, you know what I mean? So, and that's obviously not just in boxing, that's universal. That's universal. And if you don't have some sort of self-awareness of being able to look back, you're never going to grow as a person, do you know what I mean? So having that, like literally same weight pretty much, similar ability as my brother, just him a couple of steps ahead the whole way through, really allowed me and my team to sort of dance through the sharks a little bit more, do you know what I mean? Because everyone knows that naturally something like boxing is shark-infested waters. It has to be, because of the way that budgets break down, how people make their money in boxing. There's usually balances. For someone's money to go up, someone else has to come down. Do you know what I mean? That is just natural. In life anyway, that's the economics naturally. But so in boxing, having that experience from early and being able to sort of digest it and absorb it has been great for me. And look at me now, I'm I think less than 5 years into a professional career. I managed to do it unbeaten. I managed to pick up, I think, 8 belts along the way in such a short career. Thank you.
No, it's amazing.
No,
you're talking about it like it's nothing. Do you know what I mean? So that's like 8 belts along the way. Like, that's not like 8 belts given to you. That's 8 competitions that you've had to go in and fight tooth and nail and win.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's an amazing achievement, and now you're world champ, so don't take credit away from that in any way, shape or form.
Oh,
and do you know what it is?
Thank you.
I'd like to big up Charlie, yeah? Because without the brotherly sort of relationship, you wouldn't have had the navigation skills that you've had. Like, so I think you and Charlie play a massive part in each other's careers anyway. Do you know what I mean? And where you've got in now, Charlie's going to be hungry now. Yeah. He's going to be hungry now. He wants this now. My little brother, what? Because I know what I was like, yeah? So I know what the brother rivalry's like. So there's no way in a million years, yeah, he's not going to go on now and up his game. Yeah. What? You're world champion? Wow. Two weight. Like 3 weight. Like, it's going to be that kind of competition between you both now. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, it's nice to be part of that, close to that, and sort of involved in some way. You know what I'm saying? It's nice to watch you both of your journeys, both of your transitions, and both of your achievements is amazing.
Yeah, because obviously we was quite lucky to be like, when I first turned pro, my first professional gym was the MTK Marbella. So we had that whole experience of that thriving, that bouncing, and that was my introduction to the pro game. Do you know what I mean? So obviously that's where I met you over there, and
that's when it was buzzing as well.
Yeah, and everyone was in there. Do you know what I mean?
Screaming and shouting in the gym, like it was like sawdust and sweat, but not sawdust and sweat. It was just screaming, shouting, sweating,
but like,
tears.
it was sort of like, obviously it would have been probably more for someone like me or my brother. But it did seem like the heart and the soul of the port of Marbella at one point. It definitely did, because if you walked through the gym, then 12 hours later walk through the club thing, you're seeing all the bouncers and you're seeing that bar owner was in earlier. You know what I mean? It really was like that. It was thriving, and like I've had such good people around me. You know what I mean? My advisor Daniel, he has steered me I was friends with him and close to him before I even turned pro. Yeah. And he obviously helped me make the connection jump into MTK, and then I found my management, and my manager works with me, Anto, works with me daily. I drive him insane. Shout out to Anto. He's probably one of the
Big up Anto.
One of the most patient with me. So I'm a very
never
easy.
used to be patient with me. I like Anto. He's really patient.
But I'm a very easy boxer to manage and promote. I'll fight anyone.
I'll fight that. I'll fight that.
Yeah.
I'll fight that.
Ask them. I don't turn opponents down. I say, what, for how much, for, and when. That's the only questions I've never turned an opponent down. Look, I just boxed the #1 Ring Magazine rated fighter in the weight.
And beat him.
And beat him, do you know what I mean?
And beat him. And beat him.
Hadn't been beaten in 13 years. All the other world champions have avoided him like the plague. Do you know what I mean? That was his 12th world title fight. He'd won, I think, he'd won 9 of 11 world title fights, and I was his 12th, so obviously he's 12 and 9 now. But he's never had a unification fight, and he's travelled every corner of the world to fight. Obviously, showed that defending his title against a Londoner in London. But no one ever fancied it with him. Do you know what I mean?
My Sonny Edwards, come on, son. Hey, yeah! Right, so we're going to go back to the beginning of your journey, obviously, because we know you're a world champion. We know you've got a brother who's a world champion. We know you're both committed to the sport. We know you both love, breathe, eat and sleep and excellent the support and the sport. So where did it all start? How did you grow up? What kind of a environment was you from? What was your parents like?
So going right back to the beginning, both born in London, Sutton, St Hilly Hospital. I was born, my birthday is the 1st of January.
Oh, is it?
So there's newspaper cuttings of me being born, because I was the first kid born that year in that hospital. So obviously I was born to be a star, do you know what I mean?
So you're a Capricorn?
Yeah, Capricorn.
Same as Marv, man, I'm a Capricorn. Yeah! Come on, 9th of January I was born.
Yeah, so 1st of January, and was born, we was in council housing for the first few years of our life. Obviously something I can't remember too much. Council house in Radcliffe Gardens, just opposite the primary school I ended up going to.
Radcliffe Gardens?
Carshalton Beaches.
I used to live in the Radcliffe House. How mad's that?
Yeah.
I was living in Radcliffe House on the Bourne Estate in Holborn.
Okay.
Bourne Estate, Holborn, Radcliffe House.
So that was our initial, and then we moved into Bedderton. So we moved to Bedderton on like it was quite a big of a house. It was like a 3-bedroom house. It was nice, but it was in quite an undesirable location. I mean, there was like a sewage plant half a mile behind. Do you know what I mean? In opposite us was an industrial estate. Down the road there was an Asda. Do you know what I mean? Like a big superstore. So it wasn't the most desirable, but it meant we have a good house. Do you know what I mean? So after the nose blindness of smelling the sewage when it was chucking up, do you know what I mean? we was all right. And then I had quite a uneventful first 9 to 11 years. I enjoyed school. I was top of my primary school classes a lot of the time. I was very competitive. When I was interested in something, I always wanted to be the best. So at these times, age probably 7 to 11, I wanted to be the cleverest in the class. So I was getting rewarded, and I was getting good feedback from my dad when I was doing good in class. Do you know what I mean? So I was always trying to finish all the tests, trying to be the head of the class, the spelling, whatever. And then I ended up going to a grammar school, 11 plus, not like a private school where you pay for, but you had to pass like a test. Like I think there was like 2,000 applicants a year, 130 getting or something like that. Yeah. And when I first,
but they're really good schools of grammar.
Yeah,
You've got to be really intelligent to go there, haven't you?
Like when I
the
first,
tests are pretty hard.
Yeah. Like you had to have, like I had like tutoring. My dad understood the benefit of tutoring to do the sort of non-comprehension and the other stuff that you don't particularly learn just going through school. But past that, got into that, and initially I was one of the top 10 in the year of clever kids, do you know what I mean? But as my boxing got up and it got a bit harder, I'm like a little ADHD kid, me. I can only really focus on one thing, and I like being good at things. So as the work got harder, I was taking my boxing a bit more serious. My grades might have dwindled a little bit, but I still come out with all my GCSEs, my A-levels. I did go to uni. That was my original moving up to Sheffield.
I was going to say to you, because you touched on it earlier, I was going to say, did you pass at university?
So what happened was, I went to uni and I studied sports studies. I got A-levels in history, I got A-levels in English, as well as physical education, but my backup plan was always trying to be like a sports teacher. You know, if boxing don't work, some sort of education based around sport. That was my sort of backup plan. I went to uni. I weren't the typical uni student. I didn't.
Obviously.
Yeah, I was world
champions are not uni. I mean,
no, but
university candidates, are they?
At this time, I was amateur boxing, and after the first year, I won the senior ABA title. So obviously, I was pretty much training for the whole year of being. I trained all year round. So I was 18. So this was 7 years ago. About 2014 time.
Wow.
So that was my first year with Grant, who's still my trainer now.
Yeah.
And you know what, when I first went to him, I just found out a couple of weeks before that I weren't getting sent to the Europeans. I was national champion for RepDat, just beat a very, very good kid in Andrew Kane, who's actually a pro now, friend of mine. And I always had a massive chip on my shoulder. My face never fit. My style was never going to work. Always told at the stage before, it won't work, it won't work. And I'd won my 5th national title in a row, 5 back-to-back. And I just found out, because I went on holiday with my mum and her partner for my mum's birthday with my brother. I found out that I missed the trial to go to the Europeans. I was going to miss it because I only found out a couple of days before it was meant to be. I'm going on holiday tomorrow. They went, oh, that's fine. There's 3 of us. There's 3 of them anyway. So I was like, oh, cool. I went over there. I was doing some training. After the first week, the lad that was getting, with the other, like, one of the other kids posted out that he'd been picked, you know? So obviously my head fell off a bit. I was a bit, like, because this was like the 5th year in a row. Do you understand? It was like, every time you win all the nationals, the prize is usually to then go represent your country in Russia or in some mad country. Yeah, but once you get to the top, it's like they have the worlds where all the best of each country goes to fight. Yeah. And by winning stuff like them and medaling there, that's how you sort of guarantee yourself onto the GB squad. And so when I first went to Grant, I was a bit disillusioned by boxing, to be honest, because amateur boxing, my face never fit. Who wins 5 national titles, is the best in the country 5 years and 5 times in a row and doesn't sort of get the plaudits for it. I was always getting picked off someone else, and then I was going and beating them the next year or something like that. It was strange, to be honest. But after all of that, I got to Grant. He sort of unpicked me because obviously I had a lot of mistakes, but I was allowed to sort of do how I wanted in where I was training before. And I'll be real, for the first couple of months training up in Sheffield, I was a uni student, you know, them parties and them 90p double vodka Red Bulls and all of that. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you can see how people can slip into just sort of, we call it the barber lifestyle, do you know, in my friend groups. Yeah. And that's just for going out partying all the time, do you know what I mean? And living just a bit numb-minded, do you know what I mean? And really
living
take a step.
Beyond your means.
Yeah, I've never been too bad from that. I'm not like the flashiest person. I don't feel like I need to chuck around money to sort of impress people, but definitely like constantly putting yourself in situations that you don't typically need to be, when really I was going out 2-3 times a week when I really should have been staying in the gym and getting my head on it, just because I had a setback of England saying I wasn't good enough for the however many times in a row. I let that then start affecting, I didn't really want to go to the gym. Do you know what I mean? When I was going there, I was a bit like, what am I even doing this for? Do you know what I mean? But Grant got me out of that. He toughened me up. He matured me a lot in that first year.
Is there anything specific he done to make you sort of listen a bit more?
Because
there's got to be something in there that makes, because there must have been a contributing factor which made you gel with him personally too.
Definitely,
because that's a really challenging stage of your life, isn't it? Not to fall in the rigmarole of everybody else.
Yeah, because Grant was probably one of the first that really just told me how it was, told me how it is, stripped it to bare back, and probably was even over-critical, over-harsh, which I probably needed. It's funny, right, the way my dad raised us, he's always had it a bit different with me and Charlie. He was always thinking he had to help and push Charlie a bit more and guide him a bit more than me. His way of thinking was that from about 13, 14, I'm talking, Sonny knows more about boxing than any of these boxing trainers. That was the sort of mentality that he was programming into me. Because I'm quite advanced and I was having some good success and whatnot, I did start believing a bit more that, I can just do whatever I want. When people in the corner are telling me stuff, make out I'm listening, I'm not listening. Do you know what I mean? That was typically the way I was moving for a long period of time. Even when I had some really good trainers, and don't get me wrong, trainers that really brought me on, but I probably wasn't just opening my mind up as much as I should have, you know, because you know what it's like when someone tells you something you don't typically like to hear, it's usually because it's constructive, do you know what I mean? Otherwise, that's how you get to the next stage, you know what I mean? But whether if you're just sort of living in the bubble of what you know to be true or what you believe to be true, it's a lot much of a comfortable mindset. Obviously, when you've got someone's opinion and their narrative is challenging that, sometimes it's hard to take. I'm, you know, quite stubborn. I like to think that I'm right a lot more of the time, and I think Grant really helped sort of take away that from me. Obviously, I left London for the first time. I was only 18. I moved to Sheffield on my own. I was living in student accommodation at the time. So the way he was in the gym was one part of it, but it was probably that vulnerability that I had as well. You know, because obviously I'm in a new city. I've had pretty much most things done for me growing up. I mean, I left my mum's house just before when I was 18. She would still warm my towels up before I got in the bath.
Pampered young kids as well,
just completely. Do you know what I mean? That's why it's so crazy when what happened with her happened and how she's gone now, because my mum, as me of an 18-year-old, would cook, clean, wash up. I'd go down to London from uni for the first few months while she was still well. I'd take a suitcase full of washing. 2 days later, come down, it was a suitcase full of clean washing, do you know what I mean? Or ironed. And obviously when that changed, when my mum fell ill, that's probably when I really had to grow up a lot more, do you know what I mean? Because you realise how them support structures, how, you know, weak they really can be, because life is that
how
cruel,
old
innit?
was you when that happened?
So I was 18 and just turned 19. So I went to uni in September. In the February, that's when my mum fell ill. So it was in my first year of moving to uni.
Your mum just fell ill?
Yeah, to be fair, just to quickly digress, my life with that side of things is kind of broke up into probably a couple of sections. When I was 11, this was like the first sort of change. That's when my mum and dad broke up. So I went from having, primary school, and my first week of secondary school, big school, was the first week that I had a broken home. Do you know what I mean? I woke up on a Monday, my mum weren't there. My mum and dad had a very long relationship.
How did that affect you at the time?
I was bitter, very bitter towards my mum. I resented her for leaving the family home and changing what was, to me, an 11-year-old kid that didn't know no better, a happy home. Looking back at what is normal and what should be growing up, I'm lucky that I didn't have the most traumatic. You know, my dad never laid hands on my mum, never would. He was just very verbal, very shouty. You could hear him no matter what room he was in, do you know what I mean? His way or no way. And, you know, for a year at least, it was, my mum was sort of the pariah, and she was the one that I sort of took it out on, that I was waking up, the house wasn't as clean as it used to be. I used to be the neatest presented kid with the ironed shirts and whatnot, and now it was a bit doing it myself. You know, at 11-year-old, it was a bit harder, because obviously my dad had spinning plates. Yeah, spinning plates, keeping a big house going and cars running and a business running, as well as our boxing careers that had, my brother at this point was, I think, European amateur schoolboy gold medalist. Do you know what I mean?
It your dad does?
He was, his...
Or was it you?
Yeah, his like profession, I guess, what he's dedicated most life to. He was a racing driver, believe it or not. He was stock car racer, he used to travel the world.
Wow.
He was never the money man. Obviously, anyone that knows about them sports knows that it's their money in it. You have to compete. But with him, it was, he had the kind of know-how, and he was like the sort of mechanics working on the cars, and he can drive. He can control a car, my dad. Anyone that's been in a car with him, you could shout. Many a boxer over the years, you know, Lawrence Okoli being one of them, could tell you some stories about my dad driving around. You know? But he owned a second-hand tyre shop up in Sutton, opposite the bus garage. That obviously he put a lot of hours into, but as our boxing was getting more serious, the amount of hours he was putting into running his business was sort of going into the boxing a bit, travelling up and down to different parts of London depending on what clubs we were in. I mean, me and my brother had circled Earlsfield, Repton, Newham, trained down West Ham, TKO gym, the old famous TKO gym. Like, we've been all over.
What about?
Yeah, because, you know, one, my dad understood the power of sort of learning from every different environment, but also he had a very good way of alienating people after a year or two, do you know what I mean? He was just that way inclined that everything had to be the best for us, and if he felt for whatever reason it weren't, he would kick up a stink and kick up a fuss. And
he's a good dad though, right?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Sounds like a really good dad.
Obviously, with everything, there's pros and cons.
Yeah, come on, there's perfect.
So growing up, I hated that when I was like 12, 13. I couldn't just walk down the road and go see whoever, whenever. I didn't have that luxury.
Of course you hate it.
Yeah, so the second stage, going into that, was when I left my dad's home at 14 and I went to live with my mum. I took that decision on myself one day, sort of packed the bag with my essentials, got on my bike and rode to my mum, you know what I mean? Which was about 5 miles away.
And how was that?
It was hard because I was kind of like the last person left in the house. My brother was sort of doing his thing for most of the time. If he was down in London, he was with his girlfriends and whatnot. But it was a hard relationship to keep without boxing being involved. And at this point, I quit boxing for 7 months. The only time I've ever had out, I went from being, because at this stage of my boxing career, I was getting to the finals. And where my brother was always getting to the finals and winning, going to European finals and winning, I was getting to the finals and losing, even though talent-wise I had it in abundance, but I just never really worked as hard as I could have and should have. Because I always had, like, with what I was doing, everything was quite easy for me. I was sparring people. I would be down Repton doing 10, 12 round sparring against 6 different opponents, in, out, in, out, in, out, and me just standing in the gym. And from a young age, I used to do that. I'm like, even at Newham, when I'm talking about I'm 12, 13, some of the other dads used to say, oh, what's this, the Sunny Show or something, because I would spar all the kids in and around my weight. Like me getting doing first, then everyone else sort of doing it after. Probably because half my dad would push it towards that, and two, because I was usually that good enough to do it. Yeah. And with my style that I've always had, trying not to get hit, it could last. But when I left and went to live with my mum, she was the opposite. Like, so my dad was sort of the sergeant major, strict.
Disciplinarian.
Yeah. And what do you need as young boys? Do you know what I mean? Because
we touched on it earlier. He never beat you at all, though, did he?
Never laid a hand on me. The only thing he'd ever do, as far as it ever went, is he was a slow eater, my dad. He would be gulping and talking to you whilst he took 45 minutes of a roast dinner. Honestly, he would take the mix. You know how long he took. Say if I was messing about with my food one evening, I'd been naughty, he'd make me sit there until he'd finished his food. And the worst I ever got, say if I'd been proper naughty, he'd say, put your hand out, and he'd have my hand like that, trembling and looking away, and he'd give me a little bop on my hand. Yeah. But that little bop meant I could sprint up backstairs and sit on PlayStation. So it was never, he was just very verbal. Do you know what I mean? He's very loud, very animated, very...
Disciplinarian.
Yeah, he's like a sergeant major, he was.
So you had to clean your room, there's all chores in the house you had to do, stuff. Like,
do you know what?
Or was it more disciplinary?
My mum was,
yeah,
when my mum was in the house, she was so domesticated. My mum, domestic goddess. She set a standard that no other woman that I've ever met has been able to keep. To be fair, don't get me wrong, there's been some that have looked after me well, but my mum, honestly, the sides got wiped down like 2-3 times a day. I'm talking, she was like OCD. Do you know what I mean? But with that comes a very clean, presentable house all the time. Yeah. My mum, very vain woman. Do you know what I mean? But my dad, not so domesticated, so obviously the years that he was the house kind of, it deteriorated a little bit, let's be real.
But he was
messier.
He's the
dad,
builder.
You know what I mean?
He's the builder, she's the nurturer.
Yeah.
So they played tongue in cheek.
Yeah. So obviously, it was, but obviously when I was living there, it was a man's house. Do you know what I mean? When my dad's partner wasn't around, it was a man's house. Me and him for the most part. But when I left, in that second stage I was talking about, I lived with my mum. For a summer, pretty much, I got to do what I wanted, go where I wanted. I was going to raves, I was talking about a 14, 15-year-old kid. I had school, which I was still doing very much so in all the sports, everything. I love sports, from rugby, football, even cricket, cross country. I used to do everything, because I just love to compete. I didn't care what it was. I wanted to beat someone at something, and not beating them, it did me. Like coming second in cross country with all different schools going around used to kill me off. Nah, it used to kill me off. And I was always small, and what I realised is the good runners were all taller. If it was a 6 mile run, I would have ballisted them. But you know, because it was just like little 1, 2 milers, they'd get me. Do you know what I mean? I hated it. I just hate losing. But my mum, she let us sort me do anything I wanted. She knew I was sensible enough, and that probably I learned from my dad, the dangers of the world. And then I never brought no police trouble knocking on her door. I was going out being a little bastard from time to time. But
as you would do.
Yeah, but it was all well contained. And from that little like 6 month period of not boxing, my sister tried taking me up RepDat a couple of times. But obviously getting trainers and that as a 14, 15-year-old kid for coming from school, it's a bit impossible, do you know what I mean? And I realised when at the end of the summer, my friends were calling me to go and do what I'd been doing for the last 6 months, and I was making out, my mum wouldn't let me go out just so I could stay in, do you know what I mean? I got to the point where I didn't even want to, because I was missing boxing. My brother was still doing it and still succeeding. He was on Team GB. And then I realised then I got back into contact with my dad. I'd not spoke to him for 7 months. This period, not spoke to him. Because it's hard to explain without sitting there and just... But it's quite a hard relationship to have, do you know what I mean, without boxing being
I'll get it.
So
I want to put it in from a different perspective now, right? So, obviously, you're with the Sergeant Major, you're into boxing, you're focused, you're driven, you're committed to what you're doing, right? And then when you went to your mum's, you've got no boxing, you've got no commitment, you've got nothing to drive to, so you started to feel kind of lost a little bit because there's nothing happening, like, and that sort of, if it was me, I'd be thinking, what am I doing today? Where am I going today? I don't know what. And then you start missing the boxing, right? So, would it be fair to say that without any hard trauma, you actually made all the right choices as a kid for yourself? Because I'm trying to find, when you're talking, like the trauma of your mum and dad splitting up, I can associate with. But the control you had not to go above and beyond to start breaking the law, to start like the partying, the raving, like obviously you rave, you're going out a couple of times, you partying a few, like that became boring to you.
Yeah.
Is it more part the going out, socialising, being part of the in crowd was kind of boring because you weren't achieving nothing?
Yeah, because I had friends, like my education background, like I said, I went to a very good school. So I was surrounded by, don't get me wrong, there was people from all walks of life there. There really was. Clever kids, a lot of them clever, but still, you had like the mouthy ones, you had all different walks of life. We're from South London, do you know what I mean?
Math London, I like to call it.
So that's probably where I got my wit and my tongue in cheek and my quickness with responses, because when you're in 130 people in a year, a whole school full of bright academic people, they got them quick responses, you know, when it comes to the back and forth.
Even today, even being with you for the day, I've learned a lot about you. I didn't realise you'd gone to university. I didn't realise you've educated yourself. I just had my own opinion based on you coming from a working class environment and grafting through, but you seem like a very educated person. And what really stands out to me more than anything is the fact that you've stayed committed to boxing, right? You've been in and around the same environments that I've been in and around my whole entire life, and yet you haven't broken the law, you haven't been arrested, you haven't sort of booted any doors of, taken mad drugs, gone on mad, it's just the polar opposite to what is sort of programmed into so many people like myself into normality. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like, by talking to you today, it seems like you've made a lot of the right choices because of the programming you've had from your mum and your dad. Although they had a hostile relationship and split up, your mum was impeccably clean and driven woman in the home, and your dad was a hard-working man full of morals and principles. So combined, you've got the best of both worlds, and it's created two world champions. And the thing I like to, because obviously I was from a proper broken home, and not many opportunities to grow, and well, no opportunities of support in my house, right? I was smoking drugs with my mum and that at an early age. I was doing what I wanted from an early age, and I was committing crime from the age of 11 years of age. I think my first arrest was 11 years of age, and it just went on until my 40s. So I never had no support. So when I see the benefits, right, this is what I'm talking about, the benefits, right? in doing things correctly, behaving correctly, and just sort of applying yourself correctly with a good drive, good product, and a good mindset. Like, anything's possible. Like, how tall are you? 5 foot?
5'3", 5'4".
5'3". Yeah. He's a world champion. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got A levels, he's got qualifications, he's been to university. Like, I've known you for what, 12 years? I don't know you've been to university. I would never have believed you've been to university. I don't know any boxers that have been to university. So you're kind of breaking the mould a little bit in the perception of boxers' mindsets and abilities, right, in the academic world, you know, which is really, I'm really impressed, Sonny, I really am.
Well, I think, especially I was lucky enough that, yeah, my dad is a character, he's a bit of a madman, he's a bit of a maverick in the sense of most people that have really been in his company don't remember him for good or bad, do you know what I mean? He just leaves an imprint.
But no matter what you're saying, no matter what people have got to say about your dad, no matter what he's done, he's been a good dad.
Yeah, of course.
Like, he's been a dad, like, he's been a real good dad. Like, he's been a dad that I might have dreamed about when I was a kid.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, there was all the drawbacks of, I was 13, 14, want to go chase birds down the road.
That's a drawback as a 13-year-old kid, but now as a man, you look at it and you think, wow, I'm so glad my dad was like that.
And because there's kids that I was trying to go meet up with that ended up, you know, they're getting stabbed.
So hear this, right? There's kids that he wanted to hang about with, right? And he couldn't hang about because he was made to sit indoors. And he felt like a mug, he felt like a div, he felt like he didn't fit in, right? But all the kids that he wanted to hang about with, what happened to most of them?
They're not in the place I'm in now, do you know what I mean?
But some of them went to prison, some of them got stabbed, some of them have stabbed people, some of them in a bad way, because that's just logic, yeah? Like, I made it through, I'm on the telly now, yeah? But the shit I've had to go through to get here, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, you know? So I'm a fortunate anomaly. I'm something that shouldn't be here. Do you know what I mean? So I believe I'm here for a reason to change the narratives in everybody's minds. But the simple fact that I keep trying to tell everybody is this, yeah? If you've got a good product, a good network, and a wicked work ethic, there's no reason on this planet you will not become mighty successful. Do you understand? And everybody looks at success in a way of financial acquisition, right? Like financial gain, how much money you're going to get. But me personally, what I tell the youngsters is this: success, yeah? Success is owning your own home, owning your own business, having a life where you're not going to prison, where you're not getting stabbed, where you're not getting shot, and nobody's scared of you. Like, that's a life. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's got quirky little parts and bits and pieces, but you're living proof. You're from a similar environment myself. You become world champion. Yeah. I mean, I met you 12 years ago, and I'm being honest with you. Right? I never believed then that you'd be world champion. I never see anything there. I thought, you know, he's going to be world champion. I looked at Charlie, but maybe it was because I overlooked you being Charlie's little brother. Yeah. I mean, and Charlie got all the attention, like, because he's a character and he's got the teeth, he's got the eye, he's got the hair, he's got the swagger, right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's not that you haven't got the swagger, but you're two different characters. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a very sociable butterfly out there in the spotlight. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas you're more of a reserved person in the background. And I find that's pretty much similar characters with you and your brother, but the teamwork I've seen you both have and the achievements you've both made are absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that you come from a broken home, right, but no abuse. So being from a broken home doesn't mean it's an excuse to go out and break the law. Being from a broken home doesn't mean you can't achieve nothing. Because your mum leaves the house doesn't mean you've got to be a criminal or you've got to take drugs, yeah? Do what Sonny Edwards has done and become a world champion. Stay focused, stay tuned and stay happy, man. It's nice that you've done it at such a young age and that you've got the rest of the world now, or the rest of your life now, to actually make some choices, navigate yourself into a position that you might not have ever seen yourself even achieving. Do you know what I'm saying? So moving forward to the boxing, right? Yeah. And a unifying happening is two world, 3 world, 4 weight, 5 weight. What weights have we got? How many? Are we getting any predictions here, Sonny? Like, what we got? Are we going to break some rules? Not rules. We're going to break some what's it called? Records. Yeah. What's the most weight champion this country's ever had? What's the most weights?
I couldn't tell you. I'd say probably about 3, maybe.
2 or 3 maximum.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
Are you looking to get that in the bag?
I'd love to. I might have to go down to get that one.
Well, do you know what,
and then go back up.
To be honest with you and your brother's sort of competitiveness, I think the pair of you are going to do it, you know. I think the pair of you are going to do it.
Yeah, maybe between us we'll have the most, you know.
Even
most
individually, I mean,
family,
individually, one of you is going to do it. I can see that and that. But combined, you're both definitely going to do it. I mean, 2 brothers, world champions.
That's the plan. That's the plan. I mean,
would you ever fight your brother? Do you think?
Well, it could be the pay-per-view to sound off the bank, but I don't think it'd ever happen. Do you know what I mean? We've sparred and fought with thousands of rounds. So it's not really the point of not having a tear-up because we've done that sparring millions of times.
It's just beating your brother, isn't it?
It's just when you allow the world access to, you know, the build-up, the fight, the bragging rights, it becomes a bit more personal, do you know what I mean, than just who gets the better of it in the spar.
So what? I love that because that just shows how genuine you are, right, and how malicious you're not. Because me, I'd want to punch my brother's head in, so the whole world can see it. Do you know what I mean? I'll be one of them, what, my brother? Get it on. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I was just that kind of kid. Me and my brother never really got on that well. And I want the world to see me punch his head in if I got it on the telly. But yeah, you're a testament to your parents, and I'm proud to call you a friend, you know. And so moving forward, we're going to unify the division.
Yeah, I mean, I want the biggest fights. I want to be recognised.
Who is the all-time sort of personal challenge that you want to have? Like, what is the personal? What's the boundaries? What's the
fight?
Who is it you want?
The short-term goal right now in this title reign, I want Julio Cesar Martinez, the Mexican that my brother fought. They put my brother down and hit him, like with an illegal shot.
I got that. I remember that.
Yeah. So that fight, right? So I just beat the #1 ring fighter. That was Murati Mutalani. Now the Ring magazine have updated their rankings. There's a new #1 and it's not me. It's Martinez.
Ooh.
And I'm #2, so I've beat the #1 once.
How does that feel?
Do you know what? I'm glad they did it because it gives me. I like chips on my shoulder. I like chips. Yeah, I feel like having the sort of extra added pressure. I've always thrived on that. I don't mind lumping loads of chips on my shoulders in camp, in the build-up. I don't mind sort of writing the checks and then my body has to cash them. I don't mind speaking a big fight and then now the world will be either looking at you to see if you did what you said you're going to do or waiting to laugh at you. I like that added pressure. I pull it on myself and I thrive off that. Yeah. And that's, you get sometimes splits. Like when you're fighting, people don't understand that. You know, people that don't naturally have fights, say when they're in the street or don't do any sort of boxing. For me, it's a very zen type. You're just focusing, do you know what I mean? You're not thinking about nothing, particularly. When you get caught with a good shot or something's not going your way, that's when a thought will pop in your head. It could be a random thought. It could be your kids. It could be something someone said that's not even related. Do you know what I mean? It's just a random memory that comes in.
What would you say was the best shot you've ever took? Because I know you've got one. You've got to have a couple,
To be fair, the best shots I ever took, I probably got put down with. Junior Granados hit me he blindsided. I didn't even see that shot coming. The first round was easy. I was sort of schooling him, to be fair. Second round, it was same for the first half. And then this little Mexican just threw a big right hand, hit me on the back of the head, didn't see it coming, put me down. I snapped 2 ligaments in my ankle and I had to get up and box 8.5 rounds against a world level puncher. Like, he wasn't a world of a fighter, but a world of a puncher. Like, he could rock it and have it out with the top, do you know what I mean? And had he beaten a #1 before me, etc. That was a big shot. That left my ears ringing. But with me, once I felt it, I find it easier then to stay away from. Yeah. Once I feel the danger, I learn from it. So I don't mind taking a couple of shots. Now, I can usually remember the best shots most people have landed on me, whether it's fighting or sparring, you know what I mean? I can usually, they're in my memory, that was the shot that they got me with, because that's how
Have you ever sparred anyone and then thought, I hope I'll never have to fight him?
Never.
Never?
I mean, one thing about me is, I never get bashed up in sparring. I just don't. No one ever really...
I speak too soon,
No, but I just don't. with what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
One thing I can do is you could chase me around this studio right now And you would struggle to lay something on me if I didn't want to get hit because of my reactions. Just naturally, the best in the world.
I'll hold you to that because we'll find a ring to do
we'll
that.
Get in the ring. Yeah,
You've heard it here first, yeah? We're getting in the ring. We're getting in the ring, right? And I ain't going to be able to touch him. You've heard it, right? Yeah. I'm not going to touch him. So when he comes on with a couple of little grazes, yeah, he can't say nothing. Yeah?
One thing I'm good at being, even if I'm not being offensive, I'm very good at being elusive. Yeah, and that's one thing my dad...
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And do you know what? I'm going to do this now because you're a world champion, yeah? Right? You're very good at being elusive, right? Remember he said that, right? And remember, right?
Yeah.
I've got one eye, son, yeah? So you'll be boxing someone with one eye. If I mark you up now, we know who the champion's going to be. You know?
Maybe that's the secret.
I'll be the world champion. I would have been world champion. But that's what I'm saying. It's mad, isn't it? But that's what I think. So I'll have a little move about with you. And if I catch you in ways that you never thought I'd be able to, I'll be buzzing.
Yeah.
That's enough for me.
No, because one thing I can do is move. I can stand in front of you. Yeah. You're aiming, you're going for me, and then I'm behind you.
Good.
That's one thing I can do.
I love it.
I've got good timing, good reactions. That's my strength, and I've learned from not liking being I probably never got into too much trouble because I don't like getting hit. I don't like pain. I stay away from it. So
that's what I love. I love the pain aspect of it.
I don't. Yeah, and I admire people that are like that. You see some fighters. I watch some boxing, and I think I don't even know. Looking at that, I don't know why I do what I do because I couldn't box and I admire a lot of the people that. Sticklers for punishment. It's just not me.
So we've gone through the boxing, we've gone through the family, gone through you and your brother, your own personal family now. So you got children?
Yeah. I've got 2 sons. I'm a bit of a family man. I mean,
you are a family man. I love the family man.
Yeah. I'm a family man now. It's what I do it for now. I've got a 2.5-year-old, Chance.
Terrible too, Chance.
He is, and he's every part terrible of that too as well. And then I've got a newborn, a 1-month-old, 5-week-old.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And Bobby Burnell, named after my granddad and middle name of their mother's dad.
Nice.
Yeah, because my granddad, I don't think I've ever spoken about this before. My granddad, I think this is right, was the first person to be shot dead by a police officer in this country.
Wow.
Bobby Hart. Bobby Hart, his name was. He was from Brixton. He died when my mum was quite young, so it had been quite a few years ago, but he was a barber in the Brixton arcades and he got caught up into a different sort of lifestyle. And from what I know and hear in the paper article, they was doing a bank job and he was on the escape and got shot by an off-duty police officer and killed on the sidewalk. And that was, my mum lost her dad. That's how my mum lost her dad.
Unreal.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you earlier, was there any criminal sort of association growing up, right? And your dad made the right choice not to be the getaway driver, did he?
No, but if he was a getaway driver,
he was gonna if he never made the right. If he never had you and your brother, yeah, and have you got a sister as well?
But they had my sister when they were quite young, so my sister's like 42 now.
That's what it doesn't matter. Yeah. You got a sister and a brother, right? Yeah. So your dad I made a choice when I was a kid to be a criminal. Yeah. Right? Even though I had kids, something said to me, they'll be all right as long as they've got money, they'll be all right.
That's
so
what
I went off
money is everything,
to be I really did believe stupidly enough that them having money and me being in prison was the same job because I never had anything as a kid. I just wanted my kids to have everything I never had. I didn't realise that not having me in their life is going to impact them the way it has. And it hasn't been that bad, but it hasn't ended the relationships in the way where I'd like them to be ended.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying to you? But it's just one of them things.
I think with again, it's funny, it's like the hindsight. My dad probably made a lot more mistakes with my sister. You know, when my mum and dad were young, they broke up during that time, then they got back together and then had me and Charlie later on.
So it definitely worked.
But my dad was still, my dad was still race driving, so he was still going to South Africa, he was still going to Australia, he was still going wherever he wanted to go.
The point I was trying to get to was if he never had you lot, your sister and you lot, there's a good chance, because he'd be about my age, your dad, wasn't he?
My dad's about 66 now,
so
67
he's a generations above me. So
my dad's always been a wheeler dealer, I think.
No, but what was that? If he never had the kids, there's a good chance with his skills he would have been. If your uncles and all that was into stuff and doing bits, and your mum's dad, and there was that era. It was like that armed robbery era. The criminal weren't really frowned upon. Criminality weren't frowned upon as it is today. Yeah. So there's a good chance.
Don't get me wrong. I think with my dad though, He's always been a wheeler dealer. My dad used to be a proper little bastard as well. To be fair, he's probably the reason why us as his sons, he's probably been so different, because he was out on the street at 13, 14, robbing cars, hot wiring them, and he really was from that, and just being a little bastard around Sutton, you know what I mean?
He was one you lot ending up liking.
Nah.
A fucking amazing job.
Yeah. So he, and you know, he's got friends that I wouldn't even want to definitely quote the names, but you know, that was in prison. It was always ringing, and my dad is just a character. Do you know what I mean? And he probably has lived a lot more of a life than I know.
Well, you got to take you out off to old Mr. Edwards. Done a good job with your boys, mate. Guaranteed. Something I'm proud of. I'm proud to know you and your brother. And I'm looking forward to what's coming in the future, upwards and onwards for the pair of you. And yeah, it's just a great pleasure for you coming on. I'd just like to close up with just a couple of words of wisdom for the youngsters. So, a couple of young kids who are in trouble, messing about, getting in trouble with the police, messing about. What would your sort of simple bit of advice to any youngsters growing up today? What would your advice be to them? A younger version of a naughty version of you, say?
One thing for me is massive is stimulation. I think the way I see it, right, I know I'm not trying to compare the two, but with a dog, if you don't stimulate it, you leave it in your house all day, it's going to chew everything up, do you know what I mean? I think same with kids, they don't realise that they're getting sort of caged and bottled up, and then they're just looking for any sort of channel to, you know, that catharsis, that release of pent-up aggression, testosterone, anger that comes from all different places. So for the parents above, like what I'm trying to do for my son, whatever they like, whatever they enjoy, try and just encourage and never push, but encourage whatever route they want to take down. Know when to have the tough love. But for the kids growing up, it's about finding something positive, productive that you never will feel shame about. In your 24 hours of the day, if you don't feel shame about anything that could be brought up in front of anyone, your nan, your mum, then you know you're going in the right direction. Because when you're doing something that you shouldn't be, regardless of what short-term games you're getting, goals you're getting, you always know about the surroundings, the consequences, the circumstances you're putting yourself in. As arrogant, as ignorant as you want to be to it, that cognitive dissonance that a lot of people have, they know they're doing something wrong, they know they're breaking the law. But for a lot of people, they see it as the only way out. That's the problem. Yeah. I have friends that, you know, can't even come back to this country that I'm only ever going to see again if, do you know what I mean, if I'm from abroad, or I've got friends that I speak to on jail calls, and them examples of when you speak to them, you can tell from their voices that what they're doing now isn't worth what they earned from doing what they were doing. Because there's no amount of money in the world that can really take away 10 years from your kids and it'd be worth it. Do you know what I mean? It's for me.
For what is the message I put out there? So the amount of time you spend in prison, incarcerated, in hospital, it's just not worth it. So my advice to anyone out there who's struggling to find anything in life, just focus on yourself, focus on your abilities, focus on your skills, and try to tune into what you are naturally good at. You know, Marvin Herbert at Marvin at themarvinherbert.com is my email. Reach out. The social media platforms are here for you to reach out. We've got all the help, guidance and support to give anybody that's looking to transcend themselves from a criminal world into a legitimate world. As long as your hands are clean, we're here to help you. Make the transition and stay safe, stay focused, stay positive. But more importantly, to stay legal. We're going to close it up today. Thanks for coming on today, Sonny. And it was a real pleasure having you on. No doubt we'll have you back on at a later date once you've unified the division and gone out to another world weight. We'll have you back on once you've achieved a little bit more. No doubt you'll be on after a spar, because I've got to let you know what I think about his power and his punching. Right? So, yeah, thank you very much. And for those that are watching, stay tuned to the Marvin Herbert, Nothing But the Truth.